This is part 1 of 4 of the book called Forever Chemicals: How PFAS Pollutes Our Blood and Lives by Marko Vovk. The paperback, audio, or Kindle can be purchased on Amazon under Marko Vovk. This is the first 3 chapters and the start of chapter 4 of the book in AI version. Imagine a silent invader creeping into every corner of your home, touching everything you eat, drink, and breathe. For 45 years, I've worked on the front lines protecting families from threats like asbestos, radon, lead, VOCs, electromagnetic fields, and mold. Yet, as I shifted from crawling attics and basements to consulting at my desk, I discovered a more elusive foe: the dangers you cannot see. This realization hit me at breakfast. I saw my scratched nonstick pan on the stove, my paper plate with faint grooves from an earlier meal, and water fresh from the tap. At that moment, everyday items turned menacing. I remembered news stories about lasting chemicals and thought of my kitchen: the pan's non-stick surface, the coated plate, and the cup I filled, all likely sources of something much more dangerous than dust or mold. These are PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. PFAS are a large group of human-made chemicals first introduced in the 1940s, prized for their ability to resist heat, stains, oil, and water. They earned the name Forever Chemicals because they do not break down in the environment or the human body. PFAS can be found almost anywhere: non-stick pans, microwave popcorn bags, burger wrappers, waterproof jackets, stain-resistant carpets, fast food packaging, dental floss, contact lenses, and firefighting foam. In recent studies, PFAS have turned up in drinking water supplies for over 200 million Americans, rainwater across the globe, and umbilical cord blood in newborns. The CDC found measurable levels in every American they tested. As a home inspector and health advocate, I was stunned. These chemicals accumulate in people, pets, soil, and water. Some, like PFOA and PFOS, long-chain PFAS, have been linked to thyroid disease, immune system changes, increased cholesterol, lower birth weight, reproductive problems, and some cancers. This book was first written in 2024, but its message changed for me on the morning of August 15th, 2025. As I brewed my daily coffee, a habit I had never questioned, I realized even something as simple as my morning cup could deliver PFAS, one of the forever chemicals I have spent years warning others about. I investigated further and found PFAS in single-use pods, many paper and plastic cups, and even the standard filter papers used in basic drip coffee makers. Even products labeled BPA-free or eco-friendly were not always safe from hidden chemicals. Frustrated, I replaced my setup with a stainless steel percolator and a mesh filter, avoiding plastics, coatings, and unwanted chemical exposures. That moment, with coffee in hand, was a wake-up call. PFAS truly can reach into the most ordinary parts of our lives. Frustrated, I replaced my setup with a stainless steel percolator and a mesh filter, avoiding plastics, coatings, and unwanted chemical exposures. That moment, with coffee in hand, was a wake-up call. PFAS truly can reach into the most ordinary parts of our lives. After making this discovery, I knew the book needed an update. What you are reading now is the revised edition, completed on August 15th, 2025, to include the latest lessons, science, and everyday examples, like the surprising truth about my morning coffee. I hope that this information empowers you to take practical steps, starting right in your kitchen, toward a safer and healthier home. Through decades of research and on-the-ground investigation, I've seen how these invisible risks slip past the most careful families. This book will walk you through your kitchen, bathroom, laundry room, and backyard with a new set of eyes. You'll see where PFAS can hide in food wrappers, cookware, stain-resistant fabrics, water-repellent sprays, and household dust. I share real stories from families, updated regulations, practical product substitutions, and steps to reduce your exposure right now. If you're a parent seeking safer lunchboxes, a renter looking for clean water, or someone aiming for a less toxic home, this guide provides clear, actionable steps. You'll learn to spot sources, interpret labels, ask thoughtful questions, and support healthier choices. Together, we'll shine a light on forever chemicals and work toward a safer, healthier home for everyone. Introduction. PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are a family of 15,000 human-made chemicals known for their strong carbon-fluorine bonds, which resist heat, oil, stains, and water. Invented in the 1940s and mass-produced from the 1950s onward, PFAS have found their way into thousands of products, including non-stick pans, waterproof jackets, take-out food wrappers, firefighting foams, dental floss, cosmetics, and contact lenses. Their popularity has come at a steep cost. These forever chemicals do not break down in nature and have built up over time in the environment and living things. Manufacturers extract fluorine from minerals such as fluorspar, mined in China, Mexico, and Mongolia. PFAS compounds are created through processes like electrochemical fluorination and telomerization, producing a vast array of individual chemical variants. Because these substances do not degrade, they persist in soil, water, air, and living things, including wildlife, domestic animals, and people. For example, PFAS are detected in 97% of Americans' blood samples. Major manufacturers like 3M and DuPont pioneered PFAS products. DuPont's accidental creation of PTFE, polytetrafluoroethylene, branded as Teflon in 1938, launched the era of non-stick cookware. 3M introduced Scotchgard in 1953, using PFAS for stain resistance. The U.S. Navy USA 3M developed aqueous film-forming foams, AFFFs, for firefighting, which extinguish burning fuel, but have left a toxic legacy at airports, military bases, and fire training sites. AFFF use led to some of the most severe water contamination cases across the U.S., including military bases like Pease Air Force Base in New Hampshire, where PFAS was detected at hundreds of parts per trillion in groundwater and drinking supplies. By the 1970s, internal corporate studies found links between PFAS and liver toxicity in lab animals. DuPont and 3M's research showed rats exposed to high levels of PFOS and PFOA developed enlarged fatty livers. Field studies in the 1990s documented emissions from plants like DuPont's Parkersburg, West Virginia facility, leading to elevated cancer risk and livestock deaths for local farmers. The case gained national attention when attorney Robert Bellot uncovered documents showing chemical releases for decades, highlighting a cow herd's mysterious deaths and contaminated well water. The public became aware of PFAS hazards in the early 2000s. Widespread news coverage followed a 2001 lawsuit against DuPont over PFOA releases into West Virginia's water. The Environmental Working Group created a PFAS map in the 2010s, documenting contaminated water sources in all 50 states and highlighting over 2,800 locations in the U.S. with U.S.-owned PFAS pollution. PFAS contamination isn't an American problem. These chemicals have reached remote areas such as the Arctic, where researchers have found PFAS in polar bears and migratory birds. In agricultural regions, the spread of biosolids, treated sewage sludge, as fertilizer introduced PFAS into farm soils, causing crops, cows, and milk to become contaminated. In Maine, dairy farms were shuttered after milk was found to contain PFAS above safe limits. This caused a loss of livelihoods and raised new food safety questions. In Michigan, authorities discovered PFAS in beef and vegetables from contaminated land. Yet some U.S. farm unions still claim their products are the safest, often underestimating or ignoring the threat, as some farmers have lost millions in market value and required state aid or government subsidies to survive. regulation, and cleanup lag behind the scale of the problem. The EPA only set national drinking water standards for 6 common PFAS, with limits as low as 4 parts per trillion for PFOA and PFOS. Some states, like Michigan and New Jersey, have adopted much stricter rules. Testing for PFAS remains slow and costly. High-quality tests can cost hundreds of dollars per sample and may require weeks for results, limiting the ability to monitor all affected sites. Remediation efforts, like installing advanced filtration or soil removal, often run into the tens of millions of dollars for towns and military bases, stretching city budgets and taxpayer funds. Litigation has surged. 3M, DuPont, and related companies face more than 6,400 PFAS lawsuits, paying out over $15 billion in settlements so far. Cities like Philadelphia and communities across North Carolina and Minnesota have received part of these settlements. Many ongoing suits demand medical monitoring, water system upgrades, and help with property value loss. Scientists now link PFAS exposure to testicular and kidney cancer, thyroid disruption, decreased birth weight, immune suppression, lower vaccine response in children, and possible links to cholesterol and liver disease. Studies in children find reduced immune response to common vaccines, including tetanus and diphtheria, at even low PFAS concentrations. In the U.S. population, measurable levels of certain PFAS have dropped after some types were phased out, but new replacement chemicals may pose similar dangers and often evade regulation. This book explores the sweeping challenge of PFAS contamination, how it began, what science has uncovered, and the real struggles of families, communities, and farmers impacted. By tracking the movement of these chemicals through soil, water, food, the legal system, and political debate, we work to give you a complete understanding of why PFAS is an urgent global crisis and what you can do to protect your health and home in the midst of it all. Chapter 1. PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, called forever chemicals, are a vast class of man-made compounds used since the 1950s. The backbone of these substances is the carbon-fluorine bond. This is one of the strongest chemical bonds, making each molecule hard to break down by heat, water, sunlight, or bacteria. Because of this, forever chemicals persist for generations. Most standard treatment plants cannot remove them. Specialized remediation, such as high-temperature incineration or advanced filtration, is expensive. Cleaning one contaminated site can cost millions due to technical complexity and the need for permanent storage of waste. The most well-known members of this group are perfluorooctanoic acid, PFOA, and perfluorooctanosulfonic acid, PFOS. Both are synthetic acids with a chain of carbon atoms, each bonded to fluorine. PFOA was used in non-stick cookware, water-resistant clothing, and food packaging. PFOS is found in firefighting foam, carpet treatments, and stain repellents. Both chemicals travel fast through water, do not degrade, and accumulate in the blood and organs over time. To produce these materials, manufacturers mine fluorspar, a mineral, from places like China, Mexico, and Mongolia. Fluorspar contains the element fluorine, which gets separated by chemical processes. The most common production method is electrochemical fluorination. This process uses a strong electric current to rip hydrogen atoms off an organic starting material and replace them with fluorine. The addition of an element turns otherwise biodegradable molecules into persistent, forever chemicals able to survive heat and stay intact in water and living organisms for centuries. Workers then transform these molecules into acids, surfactants, and coatings for various products. Over 15,000 unique types of these compounds exist today, used to make items water or grease repellent. Examples include non-stick pans, rain jackets, popcorn bags, burger wrappers, dental floss, contact lenses, and even firefighting gear. After health agencies raised alarms about PFOA and PFOS, companies swapped to newer short-chain substitutes, making the chains of carbon and fluorine shorter. Some replacement components have fewer carbon atoms than PFOA. Instead of 8, newer forms contain 6 or 4. Examples include Gene X, also called hexafluoropropylene oxide dimer acid, and PFBS, which stands for perfluorobutane sulfonic acid. Companies promoted these as safer alternatives. A 2023 Chemical Engineering Journal study found these short-chain versions move more easily through water, accumulate faster in the environment, and cause similar health risks as older forms. Scientists have detected them in rivers, lakes, food supplies, and tap water across the globe. Companies knew of these risks early. Internal DuPont and 3M research in the 1970s tied exposure to liver enlargement in rats, immune deficiency, hormone changes, and some cancers. Public warnings were delayed for decades. Documents show legal and marketing teams advised against public disclosure, citing possible financial loss and impact on product sales. Cancer risk is not theoretical. The International Agency for Research on Cancer now classifies PFOA as a possible human carcinogen. Studies link it to kidney malignancy, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, high cholesterol, immune suppression, reduced vaccine response, and liver damage. For example, Midwest communities downstream from chemical plants have seen higher rates of kidney and testicular malignancy. Laboratory animals exposed to these substances develop enlarged and fatty livers and have offspring with abnormal growth and immune function. Contamination is not limited to people. In the wild, double-crested cormorants in the Great Lakes region have produced fewer eggs and young due to exposure. In Hawaii, researchers measured fluorinated chemicals in northern cardinals. In the Caribbean, American flamingos exhibit blood. Traces of Arctic studies found snow buntings with contaminants, revealing their global trek. Wild mammals such as otters and seals build up these substances in tissue, accumulating more in places closer to sources like airports and industrial plants. Agriculture is also affected. In Maine, farms using biosolids, fertilizer made from treated sewage sludge, discovered milk with chemical levels above state limits, forcing shutdowns and destroying family businesses. In Michigan, beef and vegetables grown on tainted land showed excessive levels in meat and crops. This has led to lawsuits, financial ruin, and long-term land use bans. Current removal methods include granular activated carbon filters, high-pressure membranes, ion exchange, and incineration. Each approach is costly, energy-intensive, and does not address the widespread pollution legacy. Testing for these substances, whether in blood, soil, or water, demands sensitive instruments and certified labs, making widespread screening difficult and expensive. The following section will cover the historical spread and continued production of these persistent chemicals, showing how they shaped modern life while raising alarm for future generations. Chapter 2. The History of PFAS. PFAS emerged in the 1930s as researchers explored the unusual strength of fluorine-carbon bonds which resist heat, water, and decay. Roy Plunkett, while working at DuPont in 1938, stumbled upon polytetrafluoroethylene PTFE after a pressurized gas cylinder unexpectedly stopped working. Upon examination, he found it contained a slick white powder, leading to Teflon's invention. This substance gained popularity for its non-stick coatings and was used in countless industries. One of the earliest significant applications of PTFE took place during the Manhattan Project in World War II, which focused on developing the atomic bomb. PTFE played a key role in uranium enrichment, used in gaskets and valves to contain hazardous gases, and also functioned as a lubricant and fire suppressant in nuclear facilities. In my book, Nuclear Extinction Event is Killing Our Families, available on Amazon by Marko Vovk. I discuss how the nuclear sector, much like the makers of these chemicals, has affected our environment and well-being. In 1945, DuPont branded PTFE as Teflon. That same year, 3M obtained the Siemens process, a manufacturing method using electrical currents and liquid hydrogen fluoride to mass update fluorinated products. The following decade brought a surge in the use of these compounds in everyday goods, stain-resistant carpeting, water-repellent fabrics, food containers, and pots and pans. Industrial facilities often contaminate nearby communities and waterways. Scotchgard, introduced by 3M in 1953, featured perfluorobutane, sulfonic acid, and expanded the reach of these substances. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, the output of these compounds soared. Carpets treated with them led to contaminated bloodstreams in people, animals, and young children. 3M and the Navy together crafted aqueous film-forming foam, AFFF, which combined perfluorooctanoic acid and perfluorooctane sulfonic acid. AFFF became essential at airports, military bases, and firefighting centers across the globe, leading to extensive spraying on runways and adjacent woodlands. The runoff affected drinking water wells, underground reservoirs, and delicate habitats. Versatile uses extended to aerospace, automobiles, construction, electronics, and more. The familiar scent in new vehicles came from upholstery and protective coatings, many containing synthetic compounds. Plastic utensils, treated cookware, and waterproof apparel became household staples. Scratches or heat from kitchen utensils could introduce microscopic substances into meals, while laundering treated garments could send trace toxins into water systems. The invention of Gore-Tex in 1969 gave birth to a wide array of waterproof clothing and outdoor equipment. Mainstream products included stain-resistant textiles, life jackets, packaging, firefighting foams, and toiletries. Widespread adoption exposed families and wildlife to hazardous materials, making oversight and better regulation urgent. In the 1970s and 1980s, preliminary studies at 3M revealed a connection between exposure and liver toxicity. In 1981, scientists detected these substances in the bloodstream of plant workers, intensifying debates about occupational health. Manufacturers relocated female employees away from reactor lines, citing issues such as infant birth weights, breastfeeding struggles, and fetal development disruptions, which future chapters will explore in depth. Still, the production of these chemical variants continued to expand. Companies broadened their offerings, exporting durable coatings and resistant agents into numerous industrial settings. Such compounds became essential in manufacturing, metal finishing, textile treatment, oil drilling, and microchip fabrication. Environmental contamination became apparent during the 1980s and 1990s. Scientists found bioaccumulation in animals and people, plus traces in lakes, soils, and food chains. A CDC study revealed 97% of U.S. citizens had signs of these substances in their blood. Wildlife studies recorded notable findings in Arctic birds, Caribbean flamingos, and cardinals in Hawaii, including diminished egg hatching and developmental anomalies. Low public awareness continued because corporations suppressed findings and prioritized sales over transparency. Internal memos provided evidence of coordinated secrecy campaigns. Today, about 30% of people recognize the term forever chemicals, yet few realize how many products have these hidden hazards. Beginning in the early 2000s, regulatory agencies such as the EPA, CDC, and WHO started investigating ecosystem effects. In 2000, 3M agreed to phase out 2 main variants due to growing evidence of health risks. 6 years later, the EPA launched a stewardship initiative to cut emissions and use by 95%, aiming for elimination by 2015. Manufacturers added advanced filtration and improved systems, but later introduced substitutes that were found to be dangerous due to their mobility and bioaccumulation patterns. As scientific understanding grew, regulators strengthened warnings and issued advisories on contamination and safety. In 2009, the Stockholm Convention placed strict global controls over some of these chemicals. The EPA's 2016 Health Advisory for Drinking Supplies set a threshold at 70 parts per trillion, a level as trim as a drop of water in 20 Olympic pools, demonstrating their potency. Exposure elevates the risk for cancers, immune dysfunction, cholesterol issues, and liver injury. Children and expectant mothers face increased susceptibility. In 2019, the EPA's action plan introduced new protocols, stricter cleanup standards, and proposals for hazard designations. Congress passed rules for military monitoring and remediation. States are advancing their restrictions, and lawsuits seek redress for environmental and public health damage. State laws often exceed federal guidelines, reflecting wider concern for safeguarding citizens from toxic exposure. This historical outline provides context for examining the primary manufacturers, scientists, and decision-makers shaping the present and future landscape of these chemicals. Chapter 3. Manufacturers of PFAS. PFAS emerged as a groundbreaking group of molecules in the mid-20th century, with several corporations becoming influential forces in the sector. 3M, as mentioned earlier, pioneered the development of compounds such as perfluorooctane sulfonic acid and perfluorooctanoic acid. In 1953, 3M introduced Scotchgard, a stain-blocking solution designed for carpets and textiles, which prevents spills from soaking in. The issue with Scotchgard lies in persistent residues that endure in tested environments and migrate into humans and animals. 3M's manufacturing was extensive, with its facility in Cottage Grove, Minnesota, serving as a leading production site. By the 1990s, the organization generated millions of pounds in revenue annually, with sales of these molecules exceeding $300 million. Plants in Decatur, Alabama, and Antwerp, Belgium, also contributed to the global supply. The Belgian facility later faced pollution claims, while its Minnesota plant contaminated groundwater, land, and nearby air, leading to illness among factory staff and community members. A local health department report cited increased cancer rates and autoimmune disorders. As the company's product range expanded, the molecules found new markets. Firefighting foam, aqueous film-forming foam became vital for extinguishing jet fuel fires and major chemical incidents. Notable events where this foam was critical include airport catastrophes in Chicago and San Francisco, oil tank explosions in Texas, and the USS Forrestal disaster in 1967. After these incidents, armed forces and civilians adopted AFFF widely, contributing to groundwater contamination and impacting first responders' long-term health. DuPont's entrance followed the discovery of polytetrafluoroethylene at the Jackson Laboratory in Deepwater, New Jersey in 1938. Chemist Roy J. Plunkett accidentally uncovered the compound while investigating alternatives for refrigeration. In 1945, the company trademarked the substance as Teflon, revolutionizing cooking surfaces and developing waterproof and friction-reducing products. DuPont's Washington Works plant in Parkersburg, West Virginia, became a central hub for production, later causing severe pollution, a topic explored further in this book. Operations in Dordrecht, Changshu, Chambers Works, and Fayetteville extended the reach of the world, raising environmental concerns and making many workers ill with liver disease and cancer. While Washington Works was pivotal, other locations were also sites of environmental releases. Deepwater, New Jersey, and Fayetteville, North Carolina, experienced groundwater contamination and rising numbers of affected employees. Documented symptoms in these communities included thyroid complications, reproductive issues, and reduced immunity. Many other firms joined the industry. 3M started production in 1949 at Cottage Grove. Japan's Daikin Industries began in the 1970s, and European competitors like Solvay in Belgium and Arkema in France followed. Each company experienced unique environmental and public health challenges. Daikin's Osaka plant focused on coatings for electronics and high-performance automotive sensors. Changing regulatory demands led to shifts in market dynamics. In 2006, the EPA initiated the PFOA stewardship program, pushing key producers to phase out certain chemicals and develop alternatives. Chemours split from DuPont in 2015, continuing the legacy at Washington Works. Chemours makes fluoropolymers for items such as frying pans, outdoor apparel, food wrappers, and advanced foams. Gen X, a new compound designed to replace older versions, contains 6 fluorinated carbons, making it less likely to remain in soil, but still accumulating in rivers and blood samples. Corteva, formed in 2019, took over portions of DuPont's portfolio focused on agricultural chemicals. The enterprise produces seeds and crop treatments for soybeans and corn, utilizing genetic modification. Herbicides and insecticides address pest resistance in both North and South America, as well as in Europe and Asia. Corteva's inherited liabilities include cleanup and legal responsibility for former DuPont sites, such as groundwater contamination cases in New Jersey and West Virginia. Other major global manufacturers include Arkema and BASF. Arkema's leading site in France manufactures polyvinylidene fluoride under the Kynar name, used in chemical piping, battery electrodes, and high-performance insulation. BASF in Ludwigshafen, Germany, produces polymers for automotive and electronics, with facilities in Belgium and the USA. Fluoroelastomers from these plants are used in O-rings, fuel lines, and electric wiring. Daikin in Osaka specializes in refrigerants. Products such as R32 hydrofluorocarbon cool homes globally. PFAS coatings are found in car wiring, sensors, and weatherproof insulation. The impact on drivers comes from exposure to emissions, contact with treated surfaces, and inhalation from air conditioning systems. Shuttered plants continue to leave legacies. The 3M Cottage Grove facility, the Chambers Works in New Jersey, and Hoosick Falls, New York, illustrate long-term water, soil, and air pollution. The Minnesota plant impacts 150 square miles and the water supply for 140,000 residents. Groundwater pumping and soil removal have cost hundreds of millions, with years of monitoring ahead. Chambers Works saw levels above state health limits, and remediation began decades ago. The EPA's designation of Superfund status brings federal oversight. These sites represent the country's most urgent pollution cases, requiring multi-step cleanups with advanced filtration and soil replacement. Hoosick Falls St. Gobain site remains under investigation, with billions of gallons of contaminated drinking water identified and health effects, including high cholesterol and cancer in locals. In West Virginia, Chemours' Washington Works plant has been the subject of thousands of lawsuits, with residents reporting kidney failure and thyroid problems. Sampling efforts have found high levels of various compounds in river sediment and private wells. Global production has shifted. Companies in China and India, like Shandong Dongyue Group and Gujarat Fluorochemicals Limited, now lead output. These organizations fill gaps left by Western firms, even as American consumers continue buying imported products without awareness of their health risks. Most developing countries have not set comprehensive rules, focusing only on the most dangerous variants. As of 2024, China's rules still targeted a small group, whereas the United States and Europe expanded controls. Worldwide economic impacts force manufacturers to budget billions for settlements, cleanups, and future losses. Corporate exits and innovations continue. 3M announced its decision to stop production by 2025, and Chemours faces growing liability costs. Others invest in research, working to develop molecules that perform well without harming people and the environment. Below is a snapshot of leading companies in this market: 3M Company, USA, Chemours, USA, Daikin Industries, Japan, Solvay, Belgium, Arkema, France, AGC Inkit, Japan, Dongyue Group, China, Gujarat Fluorochemicals, India, Florix, USA, Merck KGaA, Germany. Consumer awareness is growing as surveys show increased interest in products that avoid these substances. Manufacturers reformulate cookware, clothing, and packaging to meet changing demands. However, replacement technologies can take years to perfect, and performance sometimes suffers compared to older products. This chapter's overview of corporate actors sets the stage for a detailed review of products and the ways consumers encounter these persistent substances. Chapter 4: PFAS in our products and our daily lives. PFAS chemicals are found in numerous products that come into contact with our skin, like cosmetics, clothing, nonstick cookware, and stain-resistant carpets or furnishings. These substances create water, grease, and stain-repellent coatings for many goods and industrial items. Recent research has disproved the belief that PFAS is a carcinogen. In a 2024 Environment International study using 3D models of human skin, researchers found that 15 out of 17 tested forever chemicals penetrated skin and entered the blood. Shorter chain molecules, which have fewer carbon atoms, cross the skin more than their longer chain counterparts. For example, perfluoropentanoic acid, 5 carbons, had an absorption rate more than 4 times higher than PFOA, 8 carbons. Animal research using pigs and rats found that exposure to these substances through the skin reduced antibody levels and caused smaller spleen and thymus glands, indicating suppressed immunity. For example, a study noted porcine outer membrane exposed to short-chain variants, like PFBA, absorbed larger quantities, raising concern for similar effects in people. Loss of immune function in humans can leave both adults and children more vulnerable to infections, slow recovery from illness, and hinder responses to vaccines. When PFAS-containing products or our bodies are washed, these substances enter wastewater streams. Standard water treatment methods do not remove molecules. They dissolve, slipping through filters and ending up in rivers, reservoirs, lakes, and oceans. Some removal occurs with biosolids or through specialized activated carbon and membrane filtration, but this only moves contamination to landfills or new waste streams. As a result, persistent chemicals pollute water and harm aquatic life. Fish, birds, and mammals accumulate them through the food chain. Food packaging uses forever chemicals to block grease and moisture. Pizza boxes, microwave popcorn bags, and fast food wrappers often have a fluorinated coating. This ends Part 1 of Forever Chemicals by Marko Vovk. See Part 2 of 4 for the rest of this chapter, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.